When starting an essay, you do not pause it with a question. This is the traditional line of logic that I followed and been taught for all of my years in school. My friends in college still follow this logic. Um, I think that it holds up pretty well. But I want to posit this video with a question. Who do you think is the best player on the planet right now? Is it the current reigning MVP? Is it the current reigning finals MVP, as we had done in many years past? Which led us to conclusions that were, in hindsight, less than satisfactory at moments. Do you think the first unanimous Defensive Player of the Year deserves to still be in Best of the World conversation talks after what is a pretty bad finals performance, despite the fact that he's 22 years old? Do you think that the reigning defending champion in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the back-to-back MVP should have played better through the playoffs? Do we think that Jokic, who was considered by many to be the de facto player in the NBA, is still the best player in the world, even though he was ousted by a team that had no regard for him as a rim protector whatsoever and openly admitted so in post-game interviews in the playoffs in round one to a lower seeded team that was missing not only their best player, but the second best guard on the team, with the fourth and third best guards being Mike Conley, who was drafted in the Bush administration in big 2026, and Terrence Shannon Jr., which, be honest with yourself, unless you're a diehard Wolves fan, a diehard NBA fan, you probably didn't even know who that was before this playoff run. Should it go to Cade Cunningham? Maybe Anthony Edwards deserves some more honorable recognition in this conversation, because he was playing through an injury and he looked about as well as you could with a hyperextended knee and another knee that was also extended. Who is the best player in the world right now? I paused this question because that's the subject of today's video. I do not know who I would consider the best player in the world. I would like to think about this in the most logical of questions. Because it is such an open-ended one, I am not probably going to come to a satisfying conclusion at the end of the video because I'm spitballing and I'm rambling in front of a computer with no laptop next to me, because I want to be as unbiased as possible by just not looking at the numbers blindly. And I do want to just think about the context of where we got to where we are right now. I do want to ask you, the audience, who you think the best player in the world is. If you would be so kind as to tell me who you think that is, and to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We're going to get into that discussion. Okay, so I told you earlier in the video, in years past, we would normally just go to the guy who won finals MVP or the guy who had the best numbers in the finals. Okay, so I don't think I need to tell you this, but Jalen Brunson won finals MVP. I know. You might not have heard this, but Jalen Brunson won finals MVP. And to be as charitable as I can say, in the final game of the series, he gave us 45 points. And as a shot-making creator, he was the most consistent throughout the playoffs, with probably the sole exception of Cade Cunningham, right? Jalen Brunson has been consistently a great shot maker under pressure with mediocre offenses at times, and he's done it with bad offenses, he's done it with good offenses, he's done it with poor spacing, he's done it with great spacing, and I've seen him do it consistently enough that this finals MVP should notably sway this into me. And also, the Knicks are not just defending champions of the NBA, they are also defending champions of the, not just the postseason, but they are the defending champions of the Emirates Cup. They had a spectacular season, all things considered. They won 55 games. Jalen Brunson has been their best player for a while, and the gap between him and Karl-Anthony Towns has actually widened over the year because of the way they are using Karl-Anthony Towns as a more offensive hub, despite the fact that the production was not there. In my opinion, of an offensive hub, I'm not expecting the godly numbers of a Jokic or even the numbers of a prime LeBron James or something. I was really expecting Cat to give me like 23, and since he's an offensive hub, probably less rebounding. 23, maybe 10 rebounds. He's still 7 feet tall. Foul trouble is an issue though, and maybe like 4 or 5 assists. That's realistically what I wanted from him, with decent enough defense and stuff like that, right? Obviously, he's going to have some defensive issues because he's a foul machine, and because he fouls so much on the offensive side of the end, they also do not give him the benefit of the doubt on the other side. So there's that. Yeah, obviously Jalen Brunson is the best player in the world. I think the year prior, we were having discussions between. No, sorry, not best player in the world. Obviously, Jalen Brunson is the best player on the team. Last year, it was up in the air on if Cat was better or Jalen Brunson was better, and also we were having discussions on like, hey, Cat's making a fuck ton of money. What are we gonna do with this? Like, you traded 5 picks, first round picks. What's the for Mikal Bridges? What's the plan? Cat's about to make a fuck ton of money. OG, you decided to resign OG. You just resigned Mikal Bridges. Yeah, Brunson is on a team-friendly deal. He's not going to want to be on a team-friendly deal forever, especially if this team doesn't win a championship. We don't have to ask those questions anymore. A lot of those questions have been answered this postseason run, and I think a lot of the guys are willing to accept this. We have a lot of synergy with this team. The coachings and stuff like each other. They just won a championship in their first year together as far as coaching stuff goes together. And this is with Mike Brown without having him full control of his coaching staff. Like, I think this is about as convenient as it could get for the New York Knicks as far as a team building perspective. So there's that. With Shai, right? Shai's value to not as a talent, right, is obviously his scoring from the mid-range area, his scoring from the free throw line, and his scoring just in general, right? And his playmaking has taken leaps over the course of the season, and it's gotten a lot better. In the postseason, we saw the same deficiencies as a playmaker that we saw in the previous season, and we saw the same offensive limitations that we saw in the previous season. He does not respond well to being doubled, and stuff like that. They took him out of the game. Now, he had less offensive help this year than he had the previous year, so I am willing to ignore the playmaking deficiencies. I am not willing to ignore the same flaws as a scorer that we saw in the previous season. And also, just come here real quick. The best player of this year is not being compared to the best versions of the other players from previous years. Because I know you're saying to yourself, that doesn't make a lot of sense. They didn't do that for me this season. We're trying to take into account this season of basketball. So, again, yes, Jokic had a awful first round. Do not let the numbers lie to you. Please actually watch the game with your eyes, see how terrible the defense is, and then realize that he's not performing and peaking at these amazing offensive highs in the postseason. And he hasn't done that. Again, I said the same thing for Shai. I'm going to say the same thing for Jokic. It's been 2 years in a row of the same shit. In the previous year, we were like, okay, well, he played against OKC and the defense was amazing, right? Shai did not play against an amazing defense in all the way until this Western Conference Finals. His offense was bad because they were double teaming him. The only series he had a great offense against was against the Phoenix Suns, and that's in the past 2 years. Yes, Shai has had clutch moments and performances, a couple 30-ball games. Again, not playing to his averages, even close to his regular season averages in the postseason for the consecutive year in a row. He shot 44%. It's not acceptable. Not acceptable in today's era, at least. I will say that. If they're getting you, if the argument is for a modern basketball fans, is this era is better, right? Because the spacing and all that allows for more offensive creation, and our players still look like the same versions of the same like previous iterations of the other players in what against tougher defenses even. We did not give the same grace to Kobe. We did not give the same grace to Stephen Curry. If we can't allow Shai to be this bad and just not talk about it. This was bad. Okay. So if I don't think it's Shai, right? I don't think it's Jokic. Jalen Brunson, yeah, he's given me a great finals run. He's given me great shot creation previously. And also, I would like to point this out. The way I viewed Shai in the regular season, Brunson has done for me in the postseason, and he's also given me the moments too. So, despite the fact that I'm not going to say definitively that Jalen Brunson is the best player in the world, we should have conversations on if Jalen Brunson is in the same conversation as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think previously I had just been like, whatever, doesn't really matter. I got Shai right ahead of him. Luka right ahead of him. By the way, Luka was injured. Luka didn't play in the entire postseason. We don't have any sample size on that. If he played against the Rockets, I could have said something. He didn't play against OKC. I could have said something about that. We don't have anything for him. Giannis didn't make the postseason again because he was injured throughout most of the regular season, and this team sucked with and without him. So Giannis isn't in the conversation. Jokic is in the conversation. I think Shea is in the conversation, but it's questionable. Who do I think is the best player in the world? Do I think it's Wemby? Okay, so Wemby's value to the San Antonio Spurs, and just as an NBA player in general, is clearly not his offense. It is not his offense. It is his incomprehensible levels of defense. Even in the loss through the final series, even through what the shot making in the moments, yes, those moments help a lot of offensive players. I'm not gonna lie. The shots over Wemby that Jalen Brunson hit in this final series, yeah, bro. I'm gonna glaze him for that shit. That shit is genuinely fucking insane. Brunson is no taller than me. Hitting shots that cannot be blocked over a 7'5" nigga who is one of the greatest defenders that I've ever seen. Okay, so obviously, and by the way, Wemby is clearly not there yet as this offensive creator. He's not in the same questions as Shaq. He's not in the same questions as Kareem. All of these other bigs from the past that have had better shots and been greater scorers. Not in those conversations right now. Fuck, he's not even in Jokic offensive talks, which Wemby played significantly better against the same Timberwolves team that Jokic played against. And if we're going to give Rudy Gobert all of his credit for stopping Jokic, he did not do that with Wemby. He could not do that with Wemby. The offensive numbers are not just better. And also, Wemby has, of every top 10 player, every guy that was in the top 5 de facto before the start of the season, and just around the halfway point at the start of the season, Wemby is the most consistent guy in the playoffs. He has the biggest sample size of anyone that we can list, but the sole exception of Jalen Brunson, of course, of him just being consistently good throughout the postseason. So we let the one series sour how we feel about him, especially considering it was a 5-game series. Should we? I don't know. Does blowing the biggest lead in the finals hurt my opinion of him? Yeah. But he's 22, so is that. But I'm not here to say who the best player in the world is based on their age, right? Based on expectations or whatnot. That's not up for debate. So who else is in the conversation? All right. So let me come a little bit closer. Let me tell you really quickly, the old heads are no longer in the conversation. KD, I know we have been. It's been a long time since we've had KD, LeBron, and Steph in these conversations. They're still not in these conversations for me. They just shouldn't be there. Kawhi, despite having a great regular season, nope. Donovan Mitchell, still showing me that cheek-ass offensive production as a playmaker. There are a lot of flaws with a lot of the world's best players right now. There have been flaws in players before, don't get it twisted. I got to think of an example that's not going to flame me, and I got to think of an example who's one of the best players in the world. Tim Duncan's offensive creation was not amazing. That's a fact. His defensive impact was why he was so good. I think Kevin Garnett has a similar thing. And this is with KG being a much better player offensively than Tim Duncan as far as creation goes. Play finishing wise, I think they're defense wise. Duncan and Garnett. Those guys are not the world's greatest offensive creators. I don't think anyone needs me to tell me this. Wade couldn't shoot. Now, Wade's inability to shoot did not stop him from being one of the most lethal scorers the league had ever seen because he was one of the world's greatest slashers, but I don't think his playmaking was nearly as good as it was up until later on in his career, especially around the 2000-ish era. So there's that. I do not really know who the world's best player is, so it's tough to even think who it could be right now. There's a lot of no's immediately. I don't think Luka should be in discussion. Not enough sample size. I don't think Jokic should be in discussion. He played horrible in the playoff series that he did, and then we saw a player who is not as polished as him offensively do better offensively. The exact same position, exact same matchups. And again, if Wemby's not in the conversation, Jokic especially cannot be in it. Do we want to just stamp Jalen Brunson? Now, I'm going to go through some years previously, and we're going to talk about how the perception of the world's best player has looked. I think last year, a lot of people had it being Shea. I think Jokic and Shea was very debatable, but I think we had Shea and Jokic there for a very valid reason. That takes care of the 25 season. If we go back to the 24 season, I think a lot of people were having very, very interesting discussions between it being like Jokic, Giannis, and Luka. Fair enough. We go back to the 23 season. This is when Embiid's knees was functioning. By the way, Embiid is not in these conversations just simply because sample size and injury. If I'm gonna be harsh on the other guys, I definitely can't do it with Embiid. It can't be done. So there's that, and also we're having debates on if he's the best player on this team, Tyrese Maxey. So. Okay, I actually hadn't brought up Cade's argument for best player in the world. I think it's pretty simple. Cade had been the offensive engine for this Detroit Pistons team in a very big sample size. He had given us 13 great games of him being amazing in the postseason, out of 14. So again, that's a high percentage of really great games. The offensive production from him was really, really good. Neither of the teams, yes, there was a problem with Franz. Franz was a great matchup for him, right? And again, a lot of players in this postseason have run into great matchups for them. And they have not been as great as Cade was during the season. I think Cade deserves some recognition in the conversation. I do not think Cade is there yet. And especially because he missed a couple of games with that injury, but they did not affect him in the postseason. So I think the discussion is between three players. Jalen Brunson, Wembanyama, Cade Cunningham. Does this look a little familiar? Yeah. I think, oh, by the way, throw Shea in there as well. I do think despite Shea playing super mid in the postseason, that we have enough data on him and who he is to put him in these conversations. With Jokic, it's kind of flipping on its head. We're like, wait a minute. You played against Gobert one time. It was pretty bad in the postseason. You played against the Wolves again in the postseason. It was pretty bad. You played against OKC Thunder. It was pretty bad. So who are you if you're not this great offensively and against these great defenses, then who are you? What is your value to the team, right? Obviously, you were the guy who's supposed to be the number one in the franchise, but like, what is that value looking like when this is the answer to the questions, right? Shea's been doing a similar thing. I think Shea has given me less sample size of him being absolute horseshit. And also, in the first round, he played good against the team that he played against. And they swept them niggas. And the Lakers, I'm not willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because they didn't really need Shea to go off as much. And his players, supporting cast around him, showed up despite the fact that he was getting double teamed. And because he was double teamed, the assist numbers actually looked pretty good. He knew what to do against that team. Again, I don't think the Lakers are this great defense all of a sudden. I think their ability to nullify him and take him out of the games is why I'm not considering him as seriously as I probably would in other years. And also, I think you got to realize too, to be in the who is better right now in this year does not mean they had always been better than them, obviously, or they always will be better than them. I think Wemby needs some offensive creation. The Hakeem training was not enough. He needs more. Send it back to Hakeem again. I think Shea definitely got to work on his polish and balance and getting into playoff officiating and stuff like that, because right now it's looking like James Harden with a ring, dog. It's looking like James Harden if he won that championship early in his career. As far as Cade has given me a lot. I did not see him in the Eastern Conference Finals for a reason. He did not show up in Game 7. It was a very big moment and a very big stage. And if you could have, and also another thing, I think the team that you win 7 games against, for them to get bounced as easily as they did by the New York Knicks is a problem. It's a problem. You're a young and up-and-coming team. The Cavaliers are about to fall apart and implode on themselves most likely. That's problematic for you to be in these conversations or just be in this competitive with that series with that team, especially considering y'all had a commanding lead and y'all fucked that up too. Of the series, I think a 3-2 lead was pretty hard. And another thing, you gave up a lot. Y'all gave up some home games that you really couldn't afford to give up. Throughout all of the playoff run. It wasn't just in Cleveland series, it was in the Orlando series as well. And also, again, Tatum. I wanted to bring up Tatum, but Tatum's sample size is so low that I don't think anyone would want to even put him in these conversations. And also, he's Jason Tatum, so I don't think anyone would be entertaining these discussions because I honestly hate hoops. To be honest. This is probably why you wouldn't even talk about Tatum in these situations. I'm gonna, again, I would ask you, the viewer, who do you think is the best player in the world? I've given the arguments for a lot of guys. I've given the arguments, really more so, I've given the arguments for why a lot of guys shouldn't be in these conversations to begin with. If I could see a lot of these guys playing be healthy, who knows? Different discussion. I think not only is the top 10 fucked up, not only is the top 1 fucked up, the top 10 is fucked. I'm not gonna give you my 1, but here, I'm gonna give you my 10 really quickly. These are the top 10 players in no particular order, and no, I am not considering the old generation. It is over with. Nigga, you are close. If you're closer to 40 than you are to 30, get the fuck out of the combos. All right? Jokic is still one of the best players on the planet, regardless. Giannis, it remains to be seen, but I think Giannis can bounce back, and especially if he gets traded to a different team, we can have different conversations about him. Tatum, despite not giving me the sample size, we are still rocking with JT. We'll see what happens. All right? By the way, again, Jaylen Brown, and by the way, for the reason I'm not considering Jaylen Brown is because him and JT have the exact same argument, and the only thing that I could say for Jaylen Brown is regular season shit, and that's not enough, dog. Especially when I'm being critical and scrutinizing guys on their postseason and what they did in their sample size. Yeah, you had 7 games to wow me. You did not. And in fact, you went right back to being the co-star to Jason Tatum. So if I don't think that Jason Tatum is in these conversations, respectfully, I do not think Jaylen Brown deserves to be in these conversations neither. Okay, let's go back to that. JT, Giannis, Jokic, Luka, I assume will be better. Jalen Brunson, who is probably going to be the player that everyone's going to say is the best player in the world, and then probably flip their minds. And as soon as basketball comes back in October, Wembanyama, Cade Cunningham. Let's go ahead and throw. I don't know why. Did I mention Shea? I think I should have mentioned Shea at this point. This is the 8 so far. Anthony Edwards, give me some more basketball, and we can have some conversation, especially considering playoff basketball, especially considering Anthony Edwards is not a bad playoff performer as well. And also, he did fairly well considering the knee injuries that I saw from him. This is pretty much one player on every good team too, by the way. Let's see. Would I be wrong if I said Cat would round out my 10? Because a lot of this is the season that we had, and the older guys, they were injured. KD got injured at the tail end of the season. LeBron was injured for portions of the season. Steph Curry was injured for portions of the season. Cat, despite having to play his role, not only is he an NBA champion right now, and it was a very pivotal moment in becoming an NBA champion right now, but I think Cat just deserves the nod for being the offensive HUD and also just being very disrespected throughout the postseason run. I'm willing to give Cat the nod right now. The same way that niggas were willing to give Chet the nod right now, and not really Chet, definitely not Chet, more like Jalen Williams last year, and they were like, Jalen Williams really wowed me in the finals. I don't think Cat wowed me as much as Jalen Williams did last year, but he's in those conversations. I am fully expecting, though, especially based on how Tatum bounced back from that Achilles injury, that we will be having discussions about Tyrese Halliburton back in the top 10. I don't think that one playoff run is done. I don't think Indiana is done. We will be just having discussions about them soon. So there's that. Yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this video, though. Like, comment, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Again, if you have some disagreements about why certain players should be in top 10, tell me, or not top 10, should be number 1. Go ahead and tell me who's number 1 right now. It has literally never been any murkier. Murkier has never been confusing. It is a mess. And this video is a mess because of it. Like, comment, subscribe.